we do have an interesting topic today. This will be kind of a roundtable discussion. And I think with it just six of us, unless a lot more come in, we can just kind of go round and take as long as we want to on today's topic, which is self-publishing. Is there anybody here besides me who has not really self-published anything? I think you all have had some experience. I know I know William, he's collaborated on a book that went out in a fairly wide press. I'd really like to hear about some of that, William, and maybe a full presentation on some other meeting. But how about we go around and take up to 5 minutes? I will try to remember to time. Up to 5 minutes to just say our experience in getting our written materials out into the world. And if people have a question or comment, how about just hold your hand up, or you use the raised hand function on Zoom. Does everybody know how to use the raised hand function on Zoom? Yes? Okay. So either hold your hand up or raised hand. And if the person is talking feels like taking your question, he or she or they are welcome to do so. Or we can say, please hold questions till later. But so let me set the example here. I will set my timer to 5 minutes. And I usually take my full time. I have been very backward in self-publishing. I got started writing what I thought was going to be my great novel back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I thought I was supposed to be writing speculative fiction for the rest of my life. And I spent 5 years working very hard, working on my writing skills, going to writers' workshops and conferences and science fiction, fantasy workshops. And then my life took a right-hand turn when my guru asked me to help create a corporation for him. So around 96, I just dropped that and went on. By the time I got back into writing again, about 6, 7 years ago, the world had changed because I was among the early adapters of the internet and so on, but before the internet and after the internet, the world of publications has changed. I mean, we still have the few big publishers who publish mass market books, but now, and we still have the plethora of magazines and journalism and so on, excuse me. But at this point, according to one workshop I took on how to get published, instead of a few very clear tracks, where, say, for a novel, you write your novel, and then when it's far enough along, you get an agent, and there are ways to attract an agent. You go to and there's specific ways you track down an agent who might be the right one. And if you get the interest of the agent will help you find a development editor, or maybe you go straight to a publisher. But there are few, like 5 very specific steps when you get to the point where you're that competent. Not the case anymore. It's a vast landscape with like 40 or 50 or 75 different nodes that you can take in many different sequences to get to a vast array of different possibilities for publication. And we're going to be hearing from some of you about some of those other nodes. But I'm a boomer. I'm wired the old way. And the novel that seems to want to come into the world for me, my integral novel in progress, it wants to go mass market if possible, but there are still so many more options for getting to the point where you attract a significant publisher that there's still a huge landscape to traverse. So what I feel I have to offer this group is completely not what we're talking about today. I'd love to hear your various experiences with publishing and self-publishing in this vast terrain we have to traverse today. When we get going, as we continue with future months, and I kind of finish down on some of my other commitments and have more time to put into this, I will look forward to side groups where we can have like mini writers workshops where we really dive into, if somebody has piece of writing that they want some serious help with. Okay, how is this landing? Help me make this better. So we can have like real writers workshops where we get into helping each other with the writing. And also one of my ideas, not right now, but soon I hope, is for those of us who have published like books through Amazon or some of the other self-publishing venues to write reviews for each other's materials. I mean, this is Lisa Morosky was not able to come today. She had another commitment, but she's interested. And so we could like form groups. Somebody else will have to help me organize that to keep track of the back office stuff. But like when somebody says, hey, I have a book that came out on such and such so and so, let's get together the group of us and we'll tackle this book together. And there are ways of doing this so that we don't have to all of us read everything everybody else wrote, because that's, I mean, it's too much. But there are ways where we can, like 5 of us interview one writer and she or he tells us why they wrote it, what their passion was. I mean, we get the gist of it, and then we can read a few chapters and do a very, very good, discreet, not lying or anything, but give a sense of what readers would be attracted to this book, and put our review onto Amazon or whatever the platform is. That's something I can see us forming a little side group to do down the line to help with those who have got material out on some of these platforms that are not the big 4 mainstream publishing houses. So that's my aspiration, and I will wrap it up here and hand the baton on. Is there anybody else who would like to go next? Otherwise, I will just pick somebody. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. William, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, I don't mind, because I think I have a pretty simple, straightforward story about self-publishing. I published a book on Amazon 2 years ago. And the way it came about is I was running workshops about purpose in life before COVID. And when COVID hit, everything stopped, of course. You couldn't have any face-to-face workshops. So my business partner and I decided to create an online course in finding your purpose in life. And as we did that, we created this magnificent online course, which is this huge thing, but it really forced us to actually sit down and think about what's really going on with purpose in life and what's the whole process and what does it all look like. And after we created the online course, my business partner said, we should write a book. So the online course came out in early 2021. And then we started writing the book in later in 2021. And we published the book in September of 2022. So almost 2 years ago now. And we didn't know exactly what to do particularly, but we fortunately, my business partner is a real kind of go-to person, and she got out there and did a bunch of research and quickly realized that Amazon just has an amazing whole process for self-publishing that we just jumped into, and it's absolutely straightforward, easy to use, easy to access, tons of information, lots of tools. And so that's what we did. And it's actually really quite easy. I don't know what else to say. And you have a lot of, we chose to publish our book in 3 formats. We decided to do it in color because we have lots of sort of integrally informed pyramid shapes. Karen was actually an early reviewer of the book, And what we basically did was take purpose in life and created a vertical hierarchy of growth and inclusion into purpose in life. And so anyway, we have lots of graphics, and so we printed the book in color in paperback, a hard copy version, as well as an ebook version. And pretty straightforward to do all that. Of course, it's a lot of work on our end to get the formatting perfect and all that kind of stuff. But it's also quite straightforward. The pricing is pretty straightforward too. Basically, Amazon takes most of the money. Well, I shouldn't say that. Because we decided to publish in color, of course, that's going to be a lot more expensive. It's print on demand. And so the margin that we get on the print, whether paperback or hard copy, is rather small. We get a much bigger margin on the ebook version, so yeah,
Okay.
It's worked out quite well. Easy to manage, easy to update. But we've updated the first edition a couple times.
Wow.
Basically with correcting small things, formatting, language issues, stuff like that. So I think Amazon's actually quite good.
So you've had a good experience with Amazon.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Now
Yeah.
the thing about Amazon, of course, is that they always want you to spend more money with Amazon. So they're always trying to get you to, spend a little bit of money and we'll feature your book here and we'll do that and this. And of course, they have an algorithm as well that any books that are being very successful, they just want to sell more of those. And so those algorithms, not exactly sure what they're based on, but certainly volume is one of them. But the reviews are actually very important, it seems, for Amazon ratings. So it's important to get a lot of reviews and a lot of obviously positive reviews.
Reviews are important for the algorithm. Yeah, that's about your 5 minutes, but I have a couple of questions, and seems like we're only the 6 of us, so I'd like to take a little more time with you. When I read that late draft of your book, I was really impressed by a number of things. It was very lucid. You clearly had somebody with very professional writing skills on your team. If it wasn't you, it was somebody else. Did you have to go out and find an editor to help you with the language, or did you or your partner bring that skill with you?
Yeah, both my partner and I are good writers and good editors, I would say. We edit each other's material. I started off, one of my first jobs back in the early 80s was as a technical editor. And I was actually in Silicon Valley for several years, and I wrote about a half a dozen books back then. So I learned to write very concisely and, to the point, which I think was very helpful.
Yes.
So this is actually probably, I don't know, the 6th or 7th book I've written. But all the books I wrote back in the 80s were computer manuals.
Right.
And they're technical user's guides for computer software. And I sometimes say that never were so many books written that were read by so few people.
Oh my God. That's the downside of self-publishing.
Well, no, well, that was because of those computer manuals.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone ever read the computer manuals, because remember you used to get, you'd buy, a bunch of diskettes, software, and then you'd get like 2 or 3 books with it.
Yeah, I actually read those. I could back in the late 80s, I could make Microsoft Word sit up and beg. I did my dissertation, my PhD dissertation on Microsoft Word, 476 footnotes and all that. But that was like 30, 40 years ago. I was a power user. Now I'm so far behind the curve. At any rate, yes, that explains, William. I was really impressed when it's an excellent book. And so easy to read, but writing concisely like that is one of the things we can help each other with too. Because the reason Bet and I named this pod the Integral Creative Writers Workshop, the word creative doesn't have to be fiction. Be like William, this is a find your purpose in life. It's a kind of a psychological self-help guide. But the point being, what William just said, if this is not about technical writing or bureaucraties or academies, where if it's your job you have to read it. What we're trying to do here is help each other write material that other people read because they want to, or maybe are even willing to pay. And that's a whole different level of writing skills. So anyway, William, why don't you tell them again the title of your most recent book and what it does? And
let me get a copy.
Okay, and then we'll figure out who's going to speak up next about their adventures or wannabe adventures. Let's see. Here he comes.
Here's the book. It's called The 6 Dimensions of Purpose, a new perspective for creating or living a purposeful life.
Yeah, really impressive. And it's totally integrally informed without using any of the jargon.
Nice.
Which I love about it.
And it's actually this, the model for purposes is based on an interpretation of the 4 quadrants.
Yeah, it's cool. Thoroughly integral. Thank you, William. Who would like to step up next? Okay, Jane.
So I have sort of a history with self-publishing. In Unity churches, my husband Gary has a bestseller called The Eye of the Storm. It's kind of pretty well known in the Unity circles, the pronoun Eye of the Storm. And when we got married, he started saying at his workshops, Jane's going to write The Eye of the Storm for teens, because I was very involved in youth ministry at the time. So I went, okay. So I kind of rewrote his book, simplified it, put a lot of stories in, and it was designed for young people to read. And I created a curriculum for it as well. And so we self-published by actually going through something like Instant Publisher or one of those, and had 100 copies made at a time, kind of thing. And then eventually, and we started requiring it because we were teaching in Unity School, The Eye of the Storm. And because he liked my book better, he used to tell people this, her book's way better than mine. We'd require both of them because we used a lot of the stories as part of the teaching and whatever. And our students used to come back the next time after taking our class, and I can't tell you how many times people would poke their head in our classroom and go, Jane, I liked your book better. And run away. And it sort of became a joke in our class. But anyway, so that was how we started out. Just instant publisher. You send them the manuscript, you design the cover, you do all that. It just prints what you send them, send you the books, and you buy them. And we have them, we have a lot of books that we sell. So we have a stock of them. Well, then when I did my next book, which is called You Can't Sleep Through Your Awakening, I did it in the same way William's talking about. Now, at the time, there was somebody, his name is Tom Bird, who did these workshops called Write Your Bestseller in a Weekend. And a lot of people would go to his weekend, and yes, he would help you to write. And then if you paid him a whole lot of money, he would take you the rest of the way, which I did. And so I had somebody walk with me through that practice. And this is when Amazon was just getting into self-publishing aspect. And so there were a lot of minefields at that time. And they helped me to design a cover, and they did the editing for me, and they did all kinds of stuff. And then someone took me through the self-publishing process. So that book is on Amazon, and it's as paperback as well as a Kindle copy. And what I like about it, here's the pros, is that it's print on demand. So as people order it, they print it, they ship it. I don't have to have stock. Now, as an author, though, you can buy copies for something like $3 a copy. So we always buy 50 or so and keep them on hand.
Right.
And we can sell them off our website as well. We do that. But as William said, you're not gonna retire on Amazon self-publishing. Even with black and white, I mean, color would be even worse, but they take a big chunk of the money. You're just getting peanuts, really, like royalties, as they call it. And you have to be doing the legwork of getting your book out there and promoting it. And it doesn't just magically on Amazon start selling without you doing that sort of thing. So it's good. There's a lot I like about it. And there's also it's just the way it is these days. I mean, as you say, the world's changed in the last 30 years, and there's no more murder she wrote kind of publishing, where the publishing companies send you on these book tours, and that would be so awesome to still have those things happening. But it's pretty few and far between these days for that, unless you're a really well-known writer and you're, then you might get into those kind of things. But you have to come to a publisher now with your marketing. They want to know, what's your platform, how many people you've got, social media. You have to be the one doing all that. Publishing companies don't do that anymore, not at least to any great degree. So the other thing I'll say is that at one time, if you self-published, good luck finding an agent if you want to maybe try to find a publishing company to do it. They don't want, they're not interested if you self-published. Now it's changing somewhat. Now there are some agents who are interested. Now, mind you, they're going to look at how many books have you sold, and if you haven't sold any, well, you're probably better off to take it off the market and not try to, and it's one thing if you went out and self-published 100 books and you give them away or sell them or something, that's one thing. But if you have it out there on Amazon or some online course, they can look it up to see how the reviews are, how many people. And if it's very dismal, it's going to go against you in getting a book agent for that. So it has its pros and cons. And so I've got it on Amazon, and unless I promote it, it doesn't move too much because it's pretty specific audience, but so that's my experience of that. I will say one more thing. There was someone on the call last time who had a book that she offered through her publishing that you could get a copy if you would do a review.
That was Lisa Murawski.
Right. So I did buy the book, and then when it came, it had an interesting, it's Untimely Books is the name of it, which I just loved. I just love their name right there. I was like, I want to check these people out. And as a book coach, part of my work is helping people find publishers or agents who might be interested in their work. So I was looking at it, and it's kind of, from what I can see, it's like a co-op publishing. It's owned by the people that are publishing. So it's so I have to find out more about it. That's as much as I know, but I find that very intriguing to think of a publishing company that is co-opted with everyone that's doing their publishing. So I'm going to look into that more. I will report on that in the future, and maybe Lisa could tell us much more about it. But I love this idea, and I think it's a really good one for that. So that's my experience.
Thank you. But a comment and then a question for you, Jane. Jane had agreed to be the major presenter at our next meeting, but you're not going to be able to make it next month, right? So we'll bump you to the month after,
Yeah.
October, hopefully. And
October, yeah.
Yeah, because Jane's in training to be certified as a writing coach and, helping specifically with this process. So I'm looking forward to a more detailed report on that, what that is and what it means. This Things are changing so fast. This is one of the things I was taught when I took a publisher's boot camp course about 6 years ago. This was one of the things Jane said we were warned about, that if we have self-published books like through Amazon or some of the other venues, that could end up working against us if we end up wanting to look for an agent and a larger publisher. So that was, but things are changing so fast that what was true a few years ago may not be true anymore. So it's good that we have somebody who has a foot deep in the professional waters like Jane. So, yeah, William.
Yeah, well, I think it's very true that it's not that important anymore, the self-publishing aspect, because what they want to see is, as Jane referred to, the whole social media abilities that you have.
Yeah.
So it's not just the fact that you might be a good writer. Where's your Instagram followers, your Facebook followers? How often do you post? And how do you engage with people? And so you have to be, your whole publishing house almost. You're not just a self-publisher, you're a self-publishing house, and you have to have the ability to do everything, and it becomes your life. Yeah, I think if you really want to be successful at it, it's gotta, you got to get up in the morning and do your social media posts, and then create a little video here and comment on other people's stuff, and that is a full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah, this was something I was
Yeah.
warned about when I took that publisher's bootcamp course, is that if you want to attract a larger publisher with an agent and all that, one of the things they are going to look for is, do you come with your own platform? Do you have a social media presence? Do you have a built-in audience? Do you have like a community like the Integral community that knows you, and you can count on a certain number of sales rolling out the door? So
Right.
this is part of, if you want your work to reach a wider audience, this is one of the things we need to be prepared to do these days.
Yes. And if I could recommend a book, Dan Blank, who wrote a book called, I've got it right here, something about being the gateway. Geez, it's usually right here. I don't know what it means. But Dan Blank, he teaches human-centered marketing. And what he suggests you do and teaches, he coaches people on this, is that you get into the arena that you want to have as part of your people that are going to want to read your book, but you get involved with their writings, and you start to comment and you start to promote other people as well.
Yes.
And you end up creating relationships rather than, he says, nobody wants to hear from you in every 6 months telling them, oh, my book's out. And they say, well, I haven't talked to you in 6 months. No, you want to connect first. And then people are excited as you tell them my book's coming out. Now you have friends who are interested. And so his book is really, really excellent on that. I really recommend him.
Dan Blank, that's Being the Gateway.
Yeah, it's something like that. Oh, Be the Gateway. There it is. I found.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a comment, and then we probably be the gateway. Okay.
Be the way. Yeah.
Be the gateway. Yes, when I took that publisher's bootcamp course from an excellent woman, she's a professional contact in the world of publishing. But one of the things she suggested, besides telling us that we need to have our social media presence and so on, she said, join communities of common interest, which is pretty much just the basis for what Jane just said. And ironically, it's my own personal story. I've been reading Ken Wilber for 40 years, but I had not been part of the community, the Integral community. I was doing other things like with my guru and my spiritual community and my marriage and yada, yada. but I said, oh, okay, I guess I'll go to that conference they're holding in Denver, the What Now conference. So I went to that conference and met some people and just fell in love. And that's why I'm here with all you folks today. I've had some prior contacts with a number of you. This community has been such a wonderful opening in my life. Just that piece of advice was worth the whole workshop. Whether I ever get a book published out in the bigger world, it's like I'm having so much fun. I almost don't care. Jane, I have one more question for you, and then we'll move on. But when you said the editor, did you hire a professional editor?
Well, Tom Bird, he gave me 3 edits. One was, he called it the soul read, something like that, or he would read your manuscript and decide, do we have a book here? That's, and if the answer was yes.
But this was a service you were paying, part of the service you
I
were
was paying for him.
Got it.
Right. And then after that, when it passed muster with him, then there was 2 more edits. One was, and I can't remember them, one maybe grammar and the other typos or something like that. But it was completely well edited. And yeah, I really recommend getting a good editor, because editing your own work, it's just difficult.
It's hard, and you especially cannot proofread your own work. You're just not going to catch things anybody else would catch. Yeah, but they're called this may be passe, but dev editors. You can hire people who will take your draft that's nearly your final draft and tell you everything you need to do to change it. And that's one of the professions. And there are people who can help you find good ones who are appropriate for your work. So, but you have to pay them. These are professionals. Anyway, so
by the way, if you see me ducking around here, we have an infestation of yellow jacket bees, and somehow they keep getting in my house, and I'm up in the loft here. So if they come here, they're right buzzing around my head. And so if you see me disappear, run away. I'm running away from bees. So.
Okay. Understood. Okay, 3 down, 3 to go. Who would like to step up next? Okay, Gary.
Okay, I don't have any bees, but I do have a plumbing contractor hovering upstairs, and hopefully my wife can handle that. It just occurred, and one more thing. So I'm going a much different way. I've only written in my life, as a bureaucrat. I worked for local government, and so I did a lot of that stuff where you're writing instruction manuals, you're writing training materials, you're writing policies, procedures, that kind of thing. And sometimes writing more persuasive stuff, although then I would usually go to some of the professional writers within the agency to get help with that kind of work. And when I retired, I discovered Integral, I sort of thought, this is the best thing since whatever. Sliced bread, I guess is the expression. And I wanted people to know about it. The thing that happened to me was I sort of, in reading, my very first introduction was Suzanne Cook-Greuter's 9 levels of increasing embrace, ego development theory, and then I got into Integral from there. But all of a sudden, a whole lot of the world started making sense to me.
Yeah,
I was trained in the field of organizational development, and there's a lot of overlap with OD and Integral. So some of the concepts I kind of had partial but incomplete understanding of from the OD perspective. And I thought, well, okay, let's see if I can write about this. So my way of writing has not been through books. It's been through, well, I started out with blogs, and I did one on Blogger. I did one on WordPress, and even with Blogger, I was spending probably 80% of my time figuring out how to format things, and I would completely lose track of all the stuff I had to do as far as content. So then I found Substack, and it's really simple. And I spend about 5% of my time on technical things, and all the rest of it's on the other on
Can you
content.
just tell me, what is Substack? What is it a subsidiary of? Just what is it for those of us who are ignorant?
Substack, I think, is freestanding. I don't know that it's a subsidiary of anything. It's it's a newsletter service that looks like a blog. So if you go to my website, for instance, it looks for all intents and purposes like a blog. The format is very similar to what you'd see in an awful lot of blogs. But what happens is every time you post something, anybody that subscribes to it gets an email with that content in the email. And then if they click in a certain way, they can go to the website and look at, the previous posts and that. So I put together an outline, and basically the way I started out was as a discussion. It's a little bit like, brief history of everything, kind of a discussion format, but I try to make it more elementary. I'm speaking to my friend who is completely ignorant of philosophy and that kind of thing. And we're just having a dialogue. And the reason I hit upon that and started doing that was I discovered the writing went about 3 times faster when I did it that way. It was sort of like dictating to myself in a way. And it also reinforced part of what I was trying to do, which was to talk to somebody who knew nothing about it. So it's the way
About integral theory.
Yeah, it's the way I would talk over a cup of coffee. So I spent the first year putting together somewhere around 40 posts that were related to theory, and went through the 5 elements. Although I didn't really get into well, I did quadrants, I did stages, and I did lines, and the other 2 I haven't spent very much time on. And then what I wanted to do was to start writing about application. How do you apply these things in real life? How do you apply them in real basic things? How do you apply them in political things, spiritual things, all these different matters? And so I had a pretty nice writing schedule when I was doing the theory posts, where I was getting them out once a week. And now that I've been doing the application thing, I'm not exactly sure what's happened. Either my life has gone into complete chaos, or these are much harder. Because what I find myself doing is writing an application piece where I'm talking about, I'm a member of a Unitarian church, and one of the things going on in the Unitarian church is extreme, I kind of liken it to progressive fundamentalism going on in the Unitarian Church. And it's really oppressive in my mind. And here are these people who are probably very much at the green level, few of them teetering into tier 2, and they don't. And they are very aggressive towards anybody who's not pure enough for meeting their standards. So I started writing about that, and I'd write, and I'd get stuck and stop, and I'd start over again. I'd write, and the reason actually I started writing was I wanted to understand it. And the writing is the way that I understand things. So the conclusion I'm coming to in this application part, where I'm trying to apply the theory, is I'm kind of coming up to this sense of, I wonder how well I really understand it. Is my stuckness in writing these application things a sign that I don't really get it yet? And I don't know the answer to that. And that's one of the reasons why, in writing this, I have about 40 subscribers to my newsletter.
I was going to
Nobody gives me any feedback.
ask.
Nobody says anything other than, oh, I really like that.
Yeah.
That's just not very useful. So
Okay.
no.
That's hopefully we can help you with that.
Yeah. So I don't know whether or not I'm making any sense, but I also am really kind of at this point of realizing, for some reason, these are really hard pieces for me to write. And I have a feeling that my understanding of integral isn't complete enough yet for me to kind of paint the whole picture.
Okay.
So that's where I am right now. For me, it's more a matter of discovery.
Interesting, which brings up the point that we have all sorts of different reasons for wanting to bring writing into the world. It could be like family legacy. You just want to record something for your family. It could be just something in me wants to come out and I don't care how many people read it. Just, no, I've got to spread this message to the world. There could be 1,000 different personal motivations. And of course, what the optimum way of getting that published, self-published, is going to depend on what the motive is. You said you have about 40 subscribers. Do I remember? Is that satisfying to you? Or is there some feeling like, no, I'd like to have more? Or is this more about the inward journey for you? I'm just curious.
I think that I would like to have more mastery of the material before more subscribers. It's sort of like I have not done any of the self-promotion stuff that Substack provides to the writers.
So Substack does provide avenues for self-promotion.
Yeah. There's a lot of different people who actually have their own Substacks about that, and the publisher also has some core materials. And I have not done any of those things because I don't feel like I'm really ready to go out on the road yet.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Thank you. Wow. This is very rich already, and we should probably move on because we are at 4:47. We have 2 people yet to hear from. Who of you is willing? Jen, you want to go next? Are you up for that?
You're mute. You're muted.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Did you want to go, Roshana?
No, go ahead, Jen.
Okay. Well, I started writing in the 1980s, because I was bored with my job. So I wrote a few autobiographical novels, one of which I tried to get published, which you could send directly to small publishers at that time. So I
Right.
got some halfway decent rejection letters anyways. And then I sort of gave up, you know. They had actually read it and they seemed fairly interesting, but it didn't fit their thing, they said. So whatever. But anyways, you know, I got interested in integral and you know, and I'm an economist. So I said, well, let's try to apply integral to economics. So I wrote a paper and then I decided to expand it into a book, and it probably took me 10 years to write a 110-page book. But uh, anyways, so then I sort of let it sit around for a while. And then during the pandemic, I decided to self-publish it to finally get it out there. And I figured that, well, I could still go to an agent later, which you're telling me maybe I can't. But
You can
so
try.
yeah. So anyways, I did get it out during the pandemic. And you know, I got a book on self-publishing, and so I went through that, made a bunch of notes, and of course you have to learn about publishing if you're going to self-publish, which you know things like what are the margins, how big is it going to be, you know, how do you format it, and all this stuff, you know. So, and I was trying to get my son to help me since he's a computer genius, you know. So
Mhm.
but he just didn't have time. So what I did is I found an editor that used to be an editor for a local monthly newspaper, news magazine type thing. And he only charged me $300 to edit it, which was nice. Um,
One of the
so I
advantages
was,
of having a small book.
yeah, yeah. So I was kind of embarrassed and that some of my quotations, I had done a lousy job in my quotations, but he could tell from that some of the wording just didn't make sense, you know, so I was pretty embarrassed about that. And I found out he was only do a certain type of editing. And there's three kinds, which I'm not remembering which three kinds there are.
Right.
So anyways, Amazon had a list of people that could help you with stuff. So I found some company in India that was pretty cheap, and it seemed like I paid about $600 to have it formatted and do some of the other types of editing, because, you know, I was saying to the original guy, says, well, there's some spelling errors you missed, you know. He says, well, that's not what I'm doing. So, you know, so, or grammar stuff or something, you know, anyways.
Right. Okay,
So,
that's the distinction between development editing, copy editing, and proofreading.
right.
You're
So
right.
that's
Three different things.
right. So, anyways, but anyways, I got it through and I got it published, and um, they gave me a free ISBN at Amazon.
Okay.
But that comes with strings if you want to use the other publisher that sells to bookstores and libraries, which I'm drawing a blank on the name of that company right now. But it makes it more difficult to sell to those companies if you go through Amazon, since they're taking another cut.
Oh,
So I found that it's better get your own ISBN, even though it, you know, costs you money. And, you know, that way you can go to each website and have a better chance of
Wow, good to know.
so, yeah.
All these little pitfalls.
Yes, yes.
Does everybody here know what an ISBN number is? Yes, yes, okay. Good, just checking.
Yeah.
So your book is out there through what, Amazon?
Yeah, through Amazon and Ingram Spark is
That
the
was
one
the
for
name.
libraries and bookstores.
What's the name of your book?
Well, then originally it was called Evolving Beyond Socialism and Capitalism. But then I decided to change a major thing in the book, so I rewrote it again. And so I've just fairly recently republished that as
Oh,
Evolution,
nice.
Purpose, and Values in Economics. Oh, the cover design comes from a friend I met at an Integral conference.
Yeah.
Nice.
Other than the
Great.
colors scheme, I'm very happy with and got a lot of comments about that cover. But
Yeah, it's nice.
the order of the colors doesn't match anything in integral or spiral dynamics. It matches the rainbow, which is cool, but oh well.
So are
Well,
you, we need to wrap up so we can move on to
okay.
Roshana,
Yeah.
but how satisfied are you with your experience in publishing? Are you
Well,
glad you did it?
I've
Wish-
sold maybe 30 to friends and family, and a few, maybe 4 or 5 put reviews out for the first book.
Mhm.
So, I'm trying to compile a list of economists to send emails to right now, but
Mm.
So you're at the having to do the self-promotion.
yeah, which is not something that I want to do really.
Right.
But
So that's where we find other people who like doing that and are good at
Right,
it and
right.
team up with them. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can find someone like that. Thank you. So we should probably move on to Roshana now.
Sure. Yeah, so I was at a newspaper for, 20 years or something like that, and I did a weekly column. So that wasn't self-published, but I took one of those columns and made that a Christmas book. It was called Merry Christmas Cosmos. And so it was pretty much a coffee table, almost a children's book, but not really for children necessarily. So very short. This was after I found integral theory, and so I sent a copy to Ken, and he replied by email and said it was lovely. So I have an email from Ken Wilber, which was a big, huge day in my life. Anyway, so yeah, I have that Merry Christmas Cosmos, and then I think I went through Book Baby with that one. I'm pretty sure, and that was probably in 2012 or something like that. More recently, I've been on Medium, which is similar to Substack. It's a writer's platform, and I don't know. I have about 1,000 or 1,500 subscribers or followers or whatever they call them over there. But I got really fed up with Medium about a year ago and just stopped writing on that platform because I used to make kind of decent money. I used to write about once a week. And, I'd make maybe $100 a month or something that would make it worth my while. And now now I haven't written in about a year, but with I think I have 150 maybe or 130 columns up on Medium. And so I get a report every week that says how many people read that week and how many actually stayed and read for more than 30 seconds or whatever. So they call it views and reads. And I make about $1.38 a month from Medium now. So I've gone over to Substack, but I'm just so lazy now. I've just gotten out of the habit of doing it. So I think I only have maybe 3 things up on Substack. And so I wanted to redo my here's the big thing. I found a mistake in my book like a year or two after I wrote it. I couldn't believe it. It was a terrible mistake too. It was just so obvious when I saw it. And I was so mad because I had given it to all these people to read and editors, including my boss, and nobody caught it. And anyway, so I was going to try to redo it. And I couldn't, for whatever reason, go through BookBaby again, if that was what I used before. So I went through Ingram Spark. I couldn't remember what it was, but it was so close to Christmas. I think when I finally got it all formatted and, all redone, I didn't have time to have it, to get a proof copy
Yeah.
and then have it ready for Christmas, because it was like mid-November by then or something like that. So I went ahead and just said, no, this looks good. Everything looks good. I'll just get 50 copies. And there were 2 or 3 pages that were just off kilter. And I was so mad. And or the colors were horrible or whatever the problem was. And they were like, well, you should have gotten a preview copy before you bought any. And they wouldn't give me it was just, I was so mad. So that was my experience with Ingram Spark. But yes, I should have gotten that one copy ahead of time. So yeah, now I have a book in progress, but it's been in progress for like 2 years. So it's probably more like just sitting there and not ever going to happen. But it's about the self. Like Sam Harris says, we don't have a self, but all these other people say we have a self. And what is the self? And just all the different, the more I look at it, there's so many different ways to describe the self, what the self is or is not. I probably have 15,000 words of just of notes and quotes and all kinds of things, but it's nowhere near written. I did at one time get energized to put it through ChatGPT to see if it could put an outline together, but it's just I have just too much crap in that folder of notes. ChatGPT couldn't really do, but it did help me write an outline on some of the basic ideas that I'm trying to bring forward. And the thing is, I don't know if it really is a book yet. I don't know if it's worth spending a lot of time on. It's something I'm curious about. Why does this person say there is no self, and this person says this is the self, and this is the self, and that is the self, and this is the self? And no, it doesn't exist. So that just bugs me. So anyway, that's my story.
Interesting. So your interest in this group is you'd like to see if that article is actually going to come together?
Maybe, yeah.
The subject that interests me, I actually was trying to look through the various Ken Wilber books I have. At some point, he actually wrote something on no self or true self.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
okay.
I can't. I thought it would have been in psychology today, in integral psychology or integral spirituality, but I didn't find it.
There's a book. We're having a thunderstorm here, and the lights are getting a little wonky. There's a book called "When the Buddha Needs Therapy." Do you know this book?
Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
Klein Smith. Yeah.
It could be Keith. I think it's
Keith.
Yeah.
Keith.
Great book. I was just reading it today, talking about the self as a process rather than a thing. Anyway, it's a great book. And I think Ken might have written something in it or
Keith is in that circle around Ken Wilber.
Yeah, great book.
Okay.
And you wrote, Sean, it's a subject I'm interested in. So chew over it sometime just for fun. So we have gotten to 5:02. Bet would have brought this in for a landing by now, but I'm, like I said, a little loosey-gooseier. Yeah, thank you for sharing. What an amazing world we live in. So many possibilities, but we've got to bring more to the plate from our side if we want to get something out in the world that's going to reach more than a very small circle, is kind of the
Right.
conclusion. So
Right.
I guess the only thing left to do here is say if there's anything today that really stood out for you in a few sentences. And since Jane is going to be taking us through book coaching in October instead of September, is there anything that came up today or in your mind that you would like to see as a subject or a presentation next month in August?
Well, this editing, 3 types of editing, that is interesting to me.
Okay.
I hadn't heard of the dev editor before. I
Yeah.
knew there were at least a couple of different kinds of editors, and I've edited a book, but I'm definitely not a book editor. I only did it because, well, I edited
Yeah.
Rob McNamara's book,
Oh,
one of
okay.
them. Yeah, when I think it was his first, and so he was like, yeah, wanting to go cheap.
Okay, we can definitely, I mean, I won't be able to say a whole lot about dev editing, but we'll keep that in mind. See, anybody else have any comments, anything that particularly stood out to you today, or or anything you would like to see us address in a future meeting?
I really like this idea of doing reviews for each other.
Mm.
That's a really good thing to do, and I think helpful
Yes.
in many ways, not just for the book's popularity, which it does that, but also just for our own
Yes.
feedback.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I see 2 levels of feedback there. One is there are some tricks. I'm kind of a beginner at this, but there's some tricks for us to write reviews for each other and get them on the platform without having to read every word of everything everybody writes. There are ways to shortcut that, and it's a way to be really practically useful to each other right like now. But then there's the next step, which is feedback as to how is this actually landing on a reader. And for that, we have to have our grown-up panties on, right? And this is where I have a lot of experience giving feedback that really helps. And the question, and there's a lot to learn there. The question I ask myself, if I had written this, what would I want these people to be telling me about it? Given that we want to improve whatever level our writing skills are, that we have to be very clear that we're in here to upgrade them and that we offer that service to each other. And that's a whole learning process. And that's where I have some experience to bring. So, okay. But as a practical matter, start setting up to actually sit down and write reviews for each other and get them posted on the relevant things. That's something we can be doing alongside. Gary.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if this is dev editing or what, but I'm interested in kind of the big picture. How do you organize? It's almost like, how do you organize a table of contents of your book? And what I've done with my website or my Substack is that because these things come out in reverse order, of course, like a blog does, I have a tab item on the top of my page that says contents, and it reads like a table of contents where I've reversed ordered everything. And so in some respects, when I look at the home page, it looks a little bit like a book. It has, kind of an orientation and table of contents and references and stuff like that. So, I could almost port this thing into a book, I guess. But I'm trying to create a way of organizing the material on a macro level so that if somebody is kind of stuck on something, they can go back and look in the table of contents and say, oh, this is a levels question here. I should go and look at what these chapters on.
By the materials, you're talking about the articles that you've written and posted on Substack, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like organizing it into a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The book coaching is designed to help with that. That's all I'll just say about that kind of book coaching I do.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, when you do your major presentation in October, that's probably part of what you do as a coach, I would imagine.
Yes.
So we,
help writers set up their writing so that they can, so it has a coherence to it and a
Yeah,
progression.
yeah.
okay, so Gary, that will be something for you to bring to our October meeting. And then when Jane's presenting,
As a question, yeah.
yeah, and maybe have
So-
a dialogue about that, yeah.
I would like to, so I want to read all your books and I want to read your blogs, Gary. Every time I'm on these, I'm writing down these books going, oh, and you know, books are my downfall. I mean, I was looking around going, I can't keep all these books, but I want to buy everybody's book, so I'm going to do it. But Gary, can you send me a link or something so that I can sign up for it? I know you're not wanting to increase any, you know, greatly at the moment, but would that be okay for me to
Well,
get your blogs?
anybody here could, I'm happy with anybody here. I'll put it in chat right now.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, in
great.
fact, I've subscribed to 2 Substack things,
Mm.
Gary's and Layman Pascal's, and it's so easy on the user end too. If, you know, they have to give me the email. If I get an email that Gary has just published such and such, and all I have to do is click the button that's in my email, and it takes me right to the article. So it's very user-friendly from the other end. Anybody else have anything to throw in the pot before we wrap up here?
No, I just want to give, I'm just sending out a link in on chat to the 6 dimensions of purpose.
Yeah.
Yes,
got
please.
it.
Highly
Nice.
recommend. It is, I mean, I was so impressed by the lucidity of the writing and I mean, it's a self-help, self-development book. That's, I mean, that's top tier. Very, very professional. Polished,
Nice.
concise, lucid.
Thank you, Karen. Have you written a book review yet?
No, I haven't. And when
Sounds
we
like
get
you
this
could
set
do
up,
a
I'm going to
good
have to
one.
bet or one of you are going to have to help me set up the mechanics of it. But this is something I would really like to do, is get up a group of us and we can take maybe in reverse order of publication, whoever, probably Lisa Morosky, whoever published most recently, we all get together. This is my brainstorm. She does a presentation, which we can tape and send to anybody. But basically, we interview her about her book and we get a sense of her passion, her purpose, right? Her drive. And then we can each get a copy and read a bit of it, and we'll do our own reviews. They won't sound like carbon copies of each other, but we get the gist of the book without having to read every word of every page. And then a week or 2 weeks or a month later, we do the next person we get together. And I mean, get this organized so that they're really like a group of us kind of doing one person's book, you know, and then the next person's, and then the next person's, and really start pumping those reviews out. But Bet's going to have to organize that for me. But this is something I see in the near future, I hope. And yes, when we get that up and running, William, I will review your book. I will review yours, Jane. I'll review anybody who's got anything out there. Gary.
Roshana, are you willing to share your Substack?
Yeah, I shared my Medium one
Yeah.
because that's where I have 100 plus articles, and Substack has like 3, and they're from the Medium.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Are you gonna use it?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just a matter of getting around to it. You know.
Jendon, can I get your book off of Amazon then?
Yes,
Yep.
Amazon, and it's actually on Barnes
Great.
and Noble's website as well.
Oh,
And
Nice.
a couple other places because I use Ingram Spark, I'm surprised. So, and
Awesome.
I was just gonna put Grail, my website is Grail.
could you pop that in the chat, please, Jendon?
Yes.
My husband's going to be so happy to hear I'm going to be ordering some more books. I'm going to stop the recording now.